Hey guys, so before we get into the video and in light of recent events, I just want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who has reached out to me, sending words of encouragement, love, and support during this very difficult time. I really didn't expect the overwhelming amount of sweet messages and thoughtfulness from absolute strangers, and I just want you guys to know that your messages and positivity have helped me get through the last week, and I can't thank you guys enough. It's so true that the smallest act of kindness can really go a long way in making a difference in someone else's life. Going forward, my sole focus is to put out quality content that you enjoy and that I love creating. I don't have the strength or desire to engage in anything other than my content. I'm excited to move forward and give you what you came here for. So with that being said, let's get back to the tea. As you can tell from the title of today's video, I want to talk about Nikita Dragun because she's been involved in some controversy lately. If you guys remember a couple weeks ago, it was reported that she denied disabled YouTuber Gorda66 a picture at Gem Beauty LA on January 21st, and more recently, she modeled for the Jeffree Star androgyny campaign where Jeffree was accused of putting her in blackface. So I know both of these stories are old news and have been reported on all over social media and YouTube, and I'm not going to sit here and add to the repetitive reports, but I do want to discuss, and probably the only thing I can add to these stories are my thoughts to possibly give you another perspective to take into consideration when these types of reports surface in the future about anyone. I'm using her situation as an example because I feel like everyone was quick to jump on the bandwagon against Nikita in these instances, but not nearly enough people took a step back to consider other possible contributing factors, and I don't know if many people considered what Nikita's been through in her life when judging her character as someone who would just outright deny a picture to a disabled person. There are a lot of things to consider before automatically deeming someone to be a certain way, and unfortunately, when reports such as these surface, people tend to blindly take the side of the accuser when the accused hasn't even had the opportunity to respond, not to mention that there wasn't even a shred of evidence presented. And let's just get things straight here with respect to the Gorda versus Nikita scandal. I am in no way saying that Gorda was being untruthful, and I am not trying to discredit her. What I am trying to say is that there's always more to consider before claims such as these are thrown around and believed by people, and yes, I totally agree that if Nikita did deny a picture to someone based on the sole fact that they're disabled, then of course that's wrong and I do not support that behavior. When this scandal initially broke, I reached out to both Nikita and the person who made the Instagram video in support of Gorda, who goes by the name of Jesus Kardashian on IG. He and Gorda are friends and he accompanied her to Gen Beauty on January 21st, so I assume he was front and center when the photo snub occurred. However, he did not respond to my message requesting his version of events, so I obviously can't provide further insight on the situation according to him. But I did receive a response from Nikita herself. Now, I want to be 100% honest here and say that when I first heard the story, I initially felt the same as anyone else would, shocked that someone whose career was built on interaction with fans would then turn around and outwardly deny a photo to one who happened to be disabled. But then I started thinking, and while this may have happened, and while I obviously do not know any of the parties personally, the way the story was put out rubbed me the wrong way, and I'll explain why. I felt like with respect to the Instagram rant, it left the door open for people to speculate whether in fact Nikita denied Gorda a picture due to the fact that she is disabled, or whether Nikita denied a disabled person a photo. Both statements sound the same, but have totally different meanings, and they both put Nikita in a bad light, one more so than the other. Also, how do we just automatically believe a statement without any context to the story? In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we were even privy to the entire story from the Gorda/Jesus Kardashian camp, just a very angry IG video filled with accusations followed by more accusations in the caption below it. Again, I'm not saying he wasn't being truthful, and I'm definitely not saying that he does not have the right to stick up for his friend. I just find it interesting how we can just accept statements as truth without a shred of evidence, or in this case, without even hearing how it all went down. Another thing that obviously came to mind was Nikita's past. If you're unfamiliar with Nikita, and even if you aren't a fan of hers, I think it's important to note that this is not someone who has had it easy by any means. On November 28th, 2015, in a very emotional YouTube video, Nikita opened up and shared that she is transgender male to female. In that video, she advised she would be starting a new series on her channel called Transformation Tuesday, where she would continue to update fans on her journey and progress of her transition. Subsequent to that video, she shared her transgender Q&A video where she answered some pretty tough personal questions. From there, she documented a very raw and real look into her facial feminization and breast augmentation surgeries, and I'm not going to get too far into that because although she did make this information public, I will openly admit that I may be ignorant to facts, and obviously this is something that I have never personally been through, and I certainly do not want to say anything out of line that would offend anyone because that is definitely not my intention. The reason I brought this up is because while yes, I cannot possibly sit here and say that I understand all the struggles and pain she's endured in her life because that would be ignorant and insensitive of me not having been through something like this, but I can say that as a human being and from the very little knowledge I have on this topic, that experiencing something like this in your life, especially at such a young age, would be extremely difficult mentally and physically, to put it lightly. And I just find it hard to believe that someone who has been through a legitimate life-altering transition would outwardly deny a disabled person a photo since we don't know the circumstances surrounding the event. It just doesn't make sense to me, and of course I'm not saying it's impossible that she turned her nose up at Gorda, but let's consider everything before we accuse her. And listen, I know people are going to say this video is biased, but in my opinion it's not. There were plenty of videos and reports in favor of Gorda, and I obviously don't know where the truth lies. But I think this was a perfect example to use to encourage people to look further into situations, especially when someone is being accused of something like this, because sometimes baseless accusations stay with people forever despite whether they are legitimate claims or not. Once something is said, it can't be taken back, especially when it comes to social media. I will get to my statement from Nikita, but I also wanted to bring up the fact that there are other circumstances to consider. That being the fact that we're talking about Pleasant Blvd here, which is a very crowded event to begin with. Also, if you remember, there were reports of absolute chaos at the event this year with evacuations due to extreme bad weather and flooding. There was the whole Desi and Lester Lux drama where people had been waiting in line for hours to meet them and the event was evacuated and those people lost their places in line, and then the evacuation notice was lifted and all those people who previously waited for hours were upset that they lost their place. It sounded like it was an unorganized shit show of an event, so that should also be taken into account. And another question that came to my mind, and honestly, I don't even know if there's a quote-unquote right answer to this question. You guys know I just say whatever comes to mind and then I debate it, but this is a legit question that came to mind, so I wanted your opinions on it, obviously. But do you feel like people with disabilities are entitled to certain things, such as a picture with a popular YouTuber, no matter what the surrounding circumstances are? Like, was Nikita obligated to take a picture with somebody just because they are disabled, meaning that she would have to bend over backwards to take a picture with this person to avoid a mess like this, where she is called out on social media by someone who didn't even find it necessary to include the story along with his rant? As I said, I reached out to both parties, and Nikita was the only party to respond with the following quote: "Hi love, thanks for messaging me. I had attended a private creator event which was held at a club venue, and not to mention that it was completely packed. Of course, I was asked for pictures and I was happy to do so with every single person, even twerked and danced as always. I would never go out of my way to deny anyone a picture. It's actually my favorite part because I get to interact with the people and hear their stories as they have heard mine. If anyone didn't get a photo with me, it was simply because I was unaware they wanted one, but anyone who tapped me on the shoulder or came up to me asking for a picture got one." Do we see the problem here? It was reported that this happened at Pleasant Blvd when, according to Nikita, it actually happened at a private club venue. This is the issue: broken telephone. People believe accusations before even hearing the entire story, before the other party has had a chance to respond, before any facts are brought forward, and before taking many other things into account with respect to the situation, which is totally unfair. Because once the accusation is made, people's minds are made up, and it really shouldn't be like that. As I said earlier, I know this is old news, but the message behind the situation, I believe, is an important one. Before you go accusing people of shit, make sure you have the facts. Don't be a fucking sheep and follow an accusation because someone throws it out there like it's no big deal. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for watching. It feels so good to be back. Thank you again for all your love and support. I am so grateful for all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget to leave your opinion below, and I will talk to you guys again in the next one. Bye, guys.